Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Let me start with a little bit of a concern, but then I'm going to lead it to what I believe is some possible good news. October the 12th, 2006, I woke up out of a dream. I was looking down upon a jet airplane, and I can see it even as I speak right now. And there was a ladder going up to this jet, and there was people standing in line to go up the ladder to get on the jet. And a voice spoke to me and said, 2 people will get on a jet with a virus. Before the plane can land, everyone on board will be dead. This will be the beginning of the end of public air transportation. And I said, what? And the voice rebuked me, and it said, you weren't listening. 2 people will get on a plane with a virus. Before the plane can land, everyone on board will be dead. This will be the beginning of the end of public air transportation. And I prayed about that a lot, and the only answer I can come up with is basically saying, Stan, if you and your family want to get out on an airplane, this will be the time to get out. So as far as I'm concerned, when we see a jet go down someplace and everyone on board is dead from a virus before the plane can even land, within 48 hours, I plan to be out of Dodge. I will probably be going to Israel and basically put everything up for sale, mail me a check when it's sold. That's going to be the plan. And yes, I will get on the radio for those people that listen, and I will tell them this has happened. But I just got an email this morning. This is a little concerning. This is dated 1/20 of 2020, comes to us from Business Insider, and it says a video of medics in hazmat suits scanning plane passengers for China's mysterious Wuhan, spelled W-U-H-A-N, Wuhan virus is stoking fears of a global epidemic. I'll read it again. A video of medics in hazmat suits scanning plane passengers for China's mysterious Wuhan virus is stoking fears of a global epidemic. It goes on to say China is desperately trying to prevent the spread of a coronavirus known as Wuhan virus. Not much is known about the illness except that it originated in the city of Wuhan, has pneumonia-like symptoms, and is similar to the 2003 SARS virus. As of Monday, as in by the time you listen to this, this was yesterday. Okay, this is cutting-edge information. As of Monday, at least 3 people in the city had died from the illness, and dozens of others had been infected, local authorities said. There have been reports of the virus in Beijing, Shenzhen, Thailand, Japan, and South Korea. A video, and this article had the video of someone taking video of these medics in these hazmat suits, scanning dozens of plane passengers for the symptoms of a mysterious fatal virus spreading across China, and it's stoking fears of a global epidemic. Okay, let me go back to what I heard. 2 people will get on a plane with a virus. Before the plane can land, everyone on board will be dead. This will be the beginning of the end of public air transportation. Now, when you fly over like the Atlantic or the Pacific, sometimes you are up there. I mean, I'm not an expert on it, but like for 3 or 4 hours, and unless you can land on water, you can't land. So that's essentially telling us that it would have to be a virus so deadly that by the time 2 people get on a plane, before the plane could land within 3 or 4 hours, probably the longest. I would like to think it'd be sooner, but I don't know. Everybody on the plane would be dead. That's a pretty fast spreading and a pretty deadly virus. So keep that in mind. Now, let's go to a little bit of good news. Sometimes I lay awake at night just thinking about all of this stuff going through my head about all of the different prophecies, the Bible prophecies, the modern prophets, and I really don't know. I really don't know how long America has. I don't know how long it is till the world government. I just don't know. I mean, believe me, I have tried to piece it together, and I've prayed and I've fasted many times, but I just don't know. Sometimes, now please do not say I'm setting a date, okay? I'm not going to set a date. Sometimes I think, wow, it could be that the judgment could hit this year, the suitcase nukes, the arrests, and then the international bankers get angry. They set off the suitcase nukes, and then people get angry at that, and so they start protesting. And then, of course, God hits us with a big New Madrid earthquake, and then the dollar's blowing worthless in the wind, and all of a sudden, maybe sometime in 2021, something like that, the Russians hit us. Sometimes that's what I can see. But then I also think, wait a minute, we got to have time to get the wells all dug and the oil produced. And, it takes 6 months to make a rig, and then it takes a month to move it over and a month to set it up and 6 months to drill to the test depths we want to drill to. And one well is not going to give Israel all of the oil that she needs to build up her military, as is part of the other prophecy. So sometimes I say, no, it can't happen that fast. It's got to be that Trump wins the next election and Trump's in for a whole another 4 years, and we have 4 or 5 more years of prosperity. No, it can't happen that quick. I just really don't know, and I wish God would tell me. But I think if God were to answer my question, I think he would say this. I think he would say, well, only the Father knows. Now, if you were to talk to Jesus, I think this is what he'd say. I think he'd say, only the Father knows, and he ain't talking to me either, okay? He says, only the Father knows, not the Son. Only the Father knows. So the Father is that entity that can see the end from the beginning, and he is only revealing certain things. Even Jesus said he did not know the day or hour of his return, but the Father only. So if we were to ask Jesus, I think he would say, it depends upon the people. And as they turn more toward wickedness and the dark side and evil, then evil comes upon them. And then the more they turn to righteousness and to me and my ways, the more they are blessed. As simple as that. It's kind of up to us how soon this hits. Now, let me get to the second point I want to make. This comes to us from my book, Miss the Mark, and this is part of Ken Peters' testimony when he had this dream where he lived through the first 3.5 years of the tribulation till he was finally beheaded. And I put his entire dream, just the dream, in the book Miss the Mark because it is something that will shake people and paint a very real picture about the last days. And it's been out, let's see, I think it came out in 2000. So it's been out now 20 years, and I don't think I've got one email, one complaint from anybody saying this guy did not hear from God. So let me read this part of it. The New World Leader. The man finally came on the scene, and he spoke with great eloquence. This is talking about the beast or the Antichrist. He spoke with great eloquence and charisma. He was soothing and promised answers to all current issues. This man was smooth and extremely convincing, able to solve nearly all problems. He was a consummate communicator and explained how this removal of people was God's judgment upon them. And that's not the rapture he's referring to. He's talking about killing people. This rattled me in the dream. I did not understand his position. Let me tell you so you can comprehend where I'm going to come from not being a born-again Christian. In the dream, when this man spoke, I began to be convinced. It began to pull me into his messages. He reminded me of Adolf Hitler speaking to the masses, but he had a demonic charisma about him that will literally pull the masses to him. That was nothing compared. Now, here, let me just pause a second. Revelation 13 says, and to him was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given to him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. Daniel says the same thing. And in this horn were the eyes of a man and mouth speaking great things. So both Daniel and Revelation says this guy is going to be given a mouth, and that mouth is given to him from God, and it is a test of all people. Now let's go back to what he said. But he had a demonic charisma about him that would literally pull the masses to him. That was nothing compared to what I saw, nothing. He was able to rally the globe. It was very, very frightening. Almost immediately he began to communicate through, here it is, through large screen televisions that were strategically placed everywhere the general populace met. Now, what he saw was large screen televisions on the sides of buildings. Well, that's the good news. I don't know that has been invented yet. I do not know of any kind of a large screen TV that is like Mylar that covers the whole side of a building. That is technology that just has not been invented. So that's the good news for today. It's saying that this time is not yet. So once we start hearing that they have the technology to make a large screen TV up on the side of a building, so the whole side of the building, and yes, I know Times Square has some pretty large ones, but he says, no, it's like Mylar. He says it was very thin TVs up on the side of these buildings. So I don't think they have that technology yet. Let's go on, though. This man's speeches and direction for the whole world had to do with, quote, new times upon us as human beings, new directives for global peace. Now, remember, Daniel says, and by peace he will destroy many. In other words, he brings peace. He says, look, if you want to have peace, then you got to all have the same religion, the same world government. That's the only way you can have global peace. And by peace, he'll destroy many. New directives for global peace and the need to give up current citizenship for world citizenship. I must tell you, I've been raised and red-blooded American, and when I heard this in the dream, I could not fathom it. I love this country, and so have this experience in this dream rattled me to the very core of my being. Now, hang on to that. Now let's go to the next thing I want to bring to you. This comes to us from Daniel Davis. This is a dream that he had several years ago. I'm going to go right to the point. Dream, scene 1. I was standing in what seemed to be downtown Dallas, Texas area, along with multitudes of people. Everyone was standing and waiting for an announcement of some kind. I had a local friend standing beside me, and our 2 boys were playing off together to the side. There was no traffic. All the cars were parked. Everything was at a standstill. All the people were calm and quiet. I noticed big screens up on the sides of many large buildings. Let me read that again. I noticed big screens up on the sides of many large buildings. See, that's the same thing Ken Peters saw. In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let a thing be established. These screens up on many of the large buildings, and I sensed that a big announcement was going to be made. Then suddenly, a man who looked like a government official appeared on the big screens and began to make an announcement. And he said, listen carefully, ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement to make. America, as you have known it, has ceased to exist. All property lines have been dissolved, and the U.S. dollar is worthless. Now, let's just pause a second. I'm going to read that again. As I read it, ask yourself, what would be the situation where this would be taking place? Is this the conclusion of a war where America has surrendered? Have we been invaded? Or is it simply a catastrophic financial collapse or change or something? Listen again. Ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement to make. America, as you have known it, has ceased to exist. All property lines have been dissolved, and the U.S. dollar is worthless. Well, now Shane Warren said he saw the U.S. dollar blowing in the wind, worthless as leaves. So we have in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses on that. We also know that Maurice Sklar saw that there was a 30% drop in the value of the dollar back in 2008, and there's going to be another 20 or 30%, all the way down to 50%, and he said eventually the dollar would be worthless. So now we have 3 different people talking about the same event. Again, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let a thing be established. Now let's go on with the dream. When the people heard this announcement, they began to panic. I felt a deep concern inside my being as I stood and watched the people begin to frantically run. They ran to their cars, and they ran down the sidewalks, and they all seemed to be headed in the western direction in sheer panic. Now let's go to scene 2. I was suddenly standing at a gas station or convenience store. This convenience store looked a little different than the typical convenience store because it had a high fence attached off to one side of it, with barbed wire across the top. Inside the fence were tractors, power equipment, lawnmowers, chainsaws, all kinds of different items that clearly had been recently traded. I was standing beside an Indian man who was clearly the owner or manager of the convenience store. Frantic people were pulling their vehicles up to the fuel pumps and were buying gas. My intuition told me that they were heading west. Well, what did scene 1 say? They were all heading west. So something obviously happened on the east side of the United States that made everybody run to the west. Let's go on. Then an SUV pulled up with an open trailer and back. An entire family was in the vehicle, and they all looked worried. They had all thrown their belongings in the trailer and strapped items down on top of the vehicle, and the father stepped out of the SUV and came up to the man. He said, "I need to get a full tank of gas." And he pulled ahead his billfold and put some dollars into his hand. And the store manager said, "I don't take U.S. dollars." The father looked concerned and said, "Well, then what do you take?" The manager says, "Well, what do you have?" The father and manager both walked over to the trailer and started looking through it to find something of value that he could trade for a tank of gas. The store manager clearly was going to choose whatever he wanted in order to allow the frantic man to get some gas. That was the end of scene 2. Scene 3. Immediately, I was standing in front of a very modern war room, which had video screens everywhere on the wall. These screens were showing scenes from different places around the world, modern events. In the middle of the room was President George Bush, who was nearing the end of his presidency. He was surrounded. That does not necessarily set a date for this. Many of them had clipboards, and they were attempting to advise him of important issues. He had his hands up in the air as if to say, "I don't want to hear any more. I'm tired and I'm worn out." I was standing beside a large man who looked like a Secret Service agent. He began to speak to me, saying, "The president has fought a long, hard battle and is very tired." I responded, "Yeah, I can see that." He said, "He's been fighting a very powerful enemy. Do you know who that enemy is?" But then I said, "No." "Socialism?" He responded with a very stern voice and said, "No, communism." So he's saying that the biggest battle America will fight is communism. You see, the exact opposite of capitalism, where every person has to provide for themselves. The opposite is capitalism, where whatever you do, the other guy also owns it. In other words, you can't get ahead. Never. You can never make a life for yourself or a better life for yourself. And that is really what our 5 candidates, or the top 5 candidates on the Democrat side right now, are fighting for. It's really communism. So to summarize what I think this is saying, in some ways, I can see that we're very close. This virus continue to grow. All of a sudden, we can see a plane go down. Everybody's on board is dead before the plane can land. On the other hand, sometimes I can see that, no, maybe we can got some time. I mean, we don't have any of these big Mylar screens up on the sides of buildings yet. Maybe we've got some more time. I honestly don't know. But I will tell you this thing that I am convinced of. I think we only have a few more years. I don't know what that few more years is. You remember, I've said many times, August 8th, 2015, Saturday night, "Lord, I don't have anything to say for the sermon tomorrow morning. What do you want to say?" And I promise, I'm not lying. I heard an audible voice that said, "This is the time of miracles." Then he downloaded in my heart that these miracles are going to be bigger than anyone has ever seen, going all the way back to Adam. No one has seen miracles as big as what is about to hit the world. And he said, as the judgment hits, so will my miracles. And he said, as the judgment hits, as the devil shows up, as the devil hits, he is going to meet him step by step, inch for pound for pound. Everything the devil does, he is not going to leave us. He is not going to forsake us. And he is going to bring us through the storm. There's not going to be, now he didn't say this, I want to make plain about that. This is my opinion. There's not going to be a pre-trib rapture protect anyone. That's a false teaching. That's a misunderstanding, which, by the way, if you want to understand the end times, you really ought to get my book, The Secret Door to Understand Bible Prophecy. I've told the story many times. I'll tell you again, but back in, well, here, I've got the book right here. Let me just open it up. This is where I wrote all of the book of Revelation out. That's how I memorized it. So I started 11/27 of 16, 11/27 of 2016, and I finished on 5/23 of 17, memorizing the book of Revelation. Right here, I got the book right here in my hand. There, you can hear me flipping through the pages. I got the book, and I wrote it all out. I memorized it. Now, to me, it was only going to be a project. Here's the story on it. I'd memorized Psalm 91. I enjoyed that. I memorized Psalm 23, and I enjoyed that. And then this kept coming to my heart that I needed to memorize the book of Revelation. And I thought, nah, I can't do that. No, I can't do that. There's a lot of self-doubt. So I thought, all right, fine. So I won't tell anybody. That way, if I fail at it, I won't be embarrassed, you know. And I mean, I'm just telling the truth, okay? So I started memorizing, but I looked, and the first like 7 verses looked too complicated. I didn't even think I'd be able to memorize those. So actually, I started at verse 8. Then when I got to the end of the first chapter, then I built up in a confidence, so I went back and I memorized the first 7 verses. So as I was memorizing along, then I thought, I don't know if I can do this. This is so difficult. And I kept praying like crazy, Lord, help me memorize this. Show me the deep and secret things. And so I thought, all right, I need a goal. I need a goal. What's halfway point? I put the whole book of Revelation all in a Word document. I removed out all of the chapter titles and all of the numbers. Everything was just nothing but text. And through a process of elimination, I found where the exact, word for word, in the English King James Version, word for word, where the middle of Revelation was. Because I was saying, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set that goal to at least memorize half of the book. And what I discovered is that there was a very important message there, because that's where it says, and the dragon was cast out, and his angels were cast out with him. In other words, the point of Revelation is that the devil is cast out. The devil is cast out of heaven, and the kingdom of God is brought to the earth. That's the whole point of it. So anyway, I started memorizing this, and I started getting revelations. Now, let me try to explain a revelation. A revelation means that all of a sudden knowledge comes into your mind that you didn't learn from a book, you didn't know it a few minutes ago, but all of a sudden you now know it. It's like you reach down in your pocket and you find some money in your pocket and you didn't know it was there before. Maybe it wasn't there before. Maybe somebody walked up and stuffed it in your pocket, or maybe you forgot it from the last time your clothes were washed. I don't know, but all of a sudden there was just knowledge there that wasn't there before. And yes, I got 2 visions and an audible voice all in the process. Now, why? I don't think it's because he wanted to build up Prophecy Club, and I certainly don't think it was trying to make Stan look like he's a smart guy. I think it's for you. I think God is, just like I've said many times, he's called me to build an army of end-time prophecy teachers working miracles. Sevenfold miracles. I believe he has brought this book primarily to Prophecy Club people because they know that you want to know the truth about Bible prophecy. So God has complimented you by sending this information to you. Why? Because he wants to raise up an army of people that can give an answer to all these scared people that have been off in the world and enjoying themselves in the world and having a good time, and they haven't taken the time to know their God, and they certainly hadn't taken their time to understand about the prophecies, and now all of a sudden they find themselves in the middle of all this, and they're scared to death, they're uninformed, and they're ill-prepared, and they need someone there, and that's you, my brothers and sisters. That's you. Please, I'm talking to you. Please, the phone is ringing. I'm telling you, the phone is ringing. God is calling you. If you're listening to my voice right now, it's not an accident. Let me say it again. It's not an accident. He has called you. He is giving you an opportunity. He's saying, go into my vineyard. The phone is ringing. You just have to pick it up, and he says, go into my vineyard, and then you say, yes, sir, I will go. And I'll have to bring up the parable, but there's another parable in the Bible that says, one vineyard master said to one of the people, go into my vineyard and work. And he said he would go, but he didn't. The other one said he wouldn't go, but he did. He said, which one did the will of his master? Well, it's the same thing with us, brothers and sisters, right now. God is calling you. If you're listening to my voice, God is calling you to go into the vineyard. Notice he didn't say go into the wheat field. The wheat represents Christians. He said go into the vineyard. The vineyard is the non-Christians, the wine press, the wine, the grapes. I think what Adam and Eve ate was not an apple. I think it was a grape. And that's a whole other 30-minute teaching. Maybe I'll bring that. But he's calling you to get yourself prepared so you can give an answer. And if you have my book, Secret Door to Understand Bible Prophecy, I don't think you can just read it once. You're going to have to read it several times. You're going to have to look at those charts in the back of it. You're going to have to do some serious studying. But when you have my book, you will not run across anyone that knows more about Bible prophecy than you. You just will not. I think this is God's gift to the Prophecy Club people to get them prepared because God wants to give you some of the souls. Let me tell you. All right, so I told this recently, but I don't know, probably 20 years ago. I was drifting off sleep one night, and I said, Lord, I just want to say that I love you more than my wife, more than my children, more than life, more than ministry, more than anything. Well, I got his attention because that was the first night that the eternity voice spoke to me. And it said, I'm giving you part of the harvest from the seeds sown by Billy Graham. I'm giving you part of the harvest from the seeds sown by Billy Graham. Then a piece of paper 2 foot by 2 foot appeared up and to the right, and in my hand appeared a sharp sword, long sword. I held it with two hands. I took the sword. I cut off about a third of the paper. As I cut off the paper, it turned to a waterfall. And I believe that that's saying that God has given me about the third the number of souls that he gave Billy Graham, and that they will come in very quickly. Now, let me tie that to you. If you're listening to my voice right now, that is talking to you. God has called you to be a part of his end-time, soul-winning, prophecy-teaching, miracle-walking ministers. He wants you to go into his vineyard, but you have to be trained. That's where the Sevenfold Miracle Crusade comes in. Leslie is going to teach you through her school of the prophets. She's going to lay hands on and anoint you, and the prophetic anointing will come on you. And you will receive a prophetic anointing that you did not have before. Why? Because God is raising up a group of people to walk in, work in, sevenfold miracles, teach prophecy in his vineyard. And if you're supposed to be there, then you're listening to my voice right now. If you're listening to my voice, you're supposed to be there. Here's what you do. You go to prophecyclub.com. You order Secret Door to Understand Bible Prophecy, and you want to probably get 10 of them. And then you want to also order my new book, Miss the Mark. And then you want to go to sevenfoldmiraclecrusades.com and get signed up for the crusade. And I think it's like $350. And we also ask a 3-day fast. 3-day consecutive fast for you to come. So imagine the power of being in a room, 300 to 500 people that are just coming off of a 3-day consecutive fast. We all break our fast together on Passover, April the 8th evening. That's Passover, and that's where we eat the lamb, and then we're going to walk through Passover, unleavened bread, and the first fruits. And if 2020 is the year Sevenfold Miracles will start, then we do know from Joel it starts in the first month. And if it starts in the first month, the highest probability it will be starting that weekend. Get yourself to sevenfoldmiraclecrusades.com and get signed up. sevenfoldmiraclecrusades.com. sevenfoldmiraclecrusades.com. Do it today. In my new book, Miss the Mark, I expose the 9 deceptions the beast will use to deceive, if it were possible, even the very elect. Since Lucifer is only given 3.5 years to rule the world, but given 6,000 years to prepare for it, is it possible he has set up a 9-point plan so well thought out, so cunning, will deceive all whose name is not written in the book of life? What would you do if you had to tell a person the most important thing in the world, but you knew they wouldn't believe you? What would you do? Would you tell them? I believe you would. But what is the most important thing in the world to tell a person? The answer is, don't take the mark of the beast, because those taking the mark do not get soul death, but eternal torment in hell. But how do you tell them? Give them Miss the Mark. It is designed to be given to anyone, even if they've never heard of the Bible, Jesus, even if they're in another religion. It takes them from a blank page to making sure they will never take the mark. It's thin and easy to read. 1 for 20, but don't do that. Instead, we make them available in lots of 10. 10 for 25, 20 for 40, 40 for 60. That's 1 for 20, but don't do that. 10 for 25, 20 for 40, and 40 for 60 at prophecyclub.com. That's Miss the Mark. Don't take the mark of the beast, prophecyclub.com. You can have instant access to over 200 titles on a recurring monthly subscription of $20 or yearly for $200 at watchprophecyclub.com.